Warren Buffett, why he is quitting. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. So we want to take a look at why Warren Buffett is quitting his job. There are outside investors involved. You know, it's a reasonable question. Why is this person quitting? They're the most important person in the company. So let's take a look at it. First of all, Buffett has said, Greg Abel gets more done in 10 hours than I can get done in 10 hours. So really think about that. Greg Abel is younger. He's 62. He was born in 1962, so he's going to be 63 this year. I think he was born at the end of October. So it's rational to say that, Greg Abel is younger and therefore he can get more done. But how effective is he? How much knowledge does he have compared to Buffett? So Greg Abel gets more done in 10 hours than I can. Fine, he's younger. He can probably cut the grass. He could probably cut more lawns in 10 hours than Buffett could. But in terms of running an investment company, different story, at least in my opinion. So this is one person's belief that Greg Abel gets more done. It doesn't really speak to the quality of the work that gets done. So it's one person's belief, Buffett, Abel gets more done in 10 hours than I can, or it's his excuse, or maybe a combination of both as to why he's quitting, because he's put this forward as a reason to walk away from that job, to quit his job. There's somebody in the office who's better than I am. I don't think so. So the chances are very good, because of the amount of time devoted to running an investment company, that 15 minutes of Buffett time are worth 2 hours of Greg Abel time. In other words, if you look at the environment Warren Buffett grew up in, his dad was in investments. He was a stockbroker. He owned a stock. He owned a stock brokerage. His dad did. Buffett grew up in the industry. So he started his career literally from childhood, effectively, because he was surrounded by companies and stocks. That's all his dad did. With the exception of, for a short time, he was a congressperson. He was a congressman. So 15 minutes of Buffett time are probably worth 2 hours of Greg Abel time. The other problem, the public, that being investors in Berkshire Hathaway, the public has no evidence of Greg Abel's competence. We have a lot of evidence that Buffett is competent. Years and years of returns, great returns, long before Greg Abel showed up. Greg Abel showed up in 1999-2000 timeframe. Buffett started his company in the 1950s. So we have no idea, we have no evidence about Greg Abel's competence. Now, I've been through this discussion with other people who say, yes, but Greg Abel has been there long enough and he's got responsibility for X, Y, and Z. So there's no interview, there are no interviews, there are no books, there's no history where Greg Abel goes public with his philosophy, his investing philosophy. Even George Soros and Stanley Druckenmiller and others have written books about their investing philosophy. We know nothing about Greg Abel. He's kind of like a blank slate. And you could say, well, that's because Buffett doesn't want someone else outshining him. Right, but this is a practical issue. This is money, our money. Should we put new money to work in Buffett's old company, Berkshire? Should we put new money to work? Since we know very little about this person, we have Buffett complaining that Greg Abel does more than he can do, but I doubt seriously that is legit. I don't think that's a legitimate reason. That's one person's opinion or excuse. So right now there is some great economic news. So let's take a little bit of a break away from Buffett for a second. We'll come back to it and look at the current economic news, which is pretty darn good, folks. 83% of companies, more than 400 companies, have announced earnings, second quarter earnings. 83% are beating analysts' expectations for earnings. That's the strongest beat of analysts' expectations since 2021, a long time. All of a sudden, companies are beating expectations, doing very well. And the growth rate, the average growth rate is about 9% for companies. Now, when you think of growth rate, think of the GDP. If we hit a 3% GDP for the country, people are jumping off, shouting from the rooftop. Look how good we're doing. This is 9% growth, average growth for companies, when only 4% was expected when April 2nd, the day that the day that the tariff plan was announced by Trump, at that point, it was expected there would be 4% growth for companies, and it was called Liberation Day. And here we are, just 3 months later, May, June, July, 3 months later, at 9% growth, and 83% of companies are beating expectations, analyst estimates, the best since 2021. That's fantastic news. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Keep in mind that right now, the vast majority, this number, 83%, is much higher than the number of companies that were expected to beat analysts' expectations of earnings. Companies have announced, a lot of companies are announcing they're doing very well. So the economy's good. So let's go back to where Berkshire Hathaway is. Because like I said, we're doing this exercise, why Buffett is quitting, because this is an investment company. This is not a company we buy things from. This is not Walmart. This is, should we put new money to work in this company? Decision-making that is relevant. And Greg Abel, we really don't know too much about that guy. Munger passed away 11/28/23. Okay? At the end of 2023, Charlie Munger passed on. Now, think about how sentimental Warren Buffett tends to be. He's very sentimental about investments he makes. He's said it on CNBC. He said it in the press in interviews over and over that if he finds that he's surrounded by people who he likes in companies, he doesn't care if their economic performance may not be up to snuff. If he finds himself in good company, he prefers that over great economic performance. That being said, his economic performance has been very good. So we know he's sentimental. We know that he lets being sentimental affect his decisions. He makes decisions based on his sentimental views. He lives in the same house since 1958 or 9. I think he bought his house. He hasn't, 1958, 1959. How many people out there feel that way about their home, their family home? He raised his children there, his wife, who has passed on. Just a lot of history with his home, with his business. He's very sentimental. He said, "I quit," on May 5th, 2025. That's 15 months after Munger passed away. Only 15 months. Decades of history in Berkshire Hathaway with Munger. Decades. Munger joined Berkshire Hathaway in the 1970s, right? The 1970s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, up through 2023. Decades. And then all of a sudden, within a short 15 months, I quit. Somebody else in the office is more energetic than I am and gets more done. So he is letting his sentimentality, obviously he's mourning, he's having mourning that his business partner has passed on. But we're trying to decide, should we put new money into Berkshire Hathaway? Because this guy, he has quit. He's quitting. And I don't, the reasons he comes up with, he said that he quit 15 months after Munger passed on. He also has said that he noticed he's starting to age faster. He's said that he's getting older more quickly now. So these are the reasons that he's quitting. Abel is better, and we have no proof for that. We have no evidence, right? Some people will argue, well, Abel's been there for a long time. Surely he must be doing a good job. We have no evidence. Abel has not produced any opinions about his investing philosophy. He hasn't come out and said, I prefer this type of company over this type of company. No books have been written. No interviews. There's nothing. He's a blank slate. Maybe he's a wallflower. He's shy as a person. Fine. But this is an investment decision. We're trying to decide, should we put new money to work in Berkshire Hathaway? That is the question. These are the reasons Buffett is quitting his job. Somebody in the office can get more done. He's younger. Big deal. I'm getting older faster now. Dubious. That's a very dubious claim. It's not true, generally. You get old at pretty much a constant rate. And this is the most important part. He misses Charlie Munger. Surely after, 5+ decades being surrounded by Charlie Munger, and then all of a sudden to have Charlie disappear, is having a huge effect on him. And he's making these irrational claims that somebody in the office is doing a better job. There's nobody who can run Berkshire Hathaway better than Buffett. Here's the proof. After Buffett started making these announcements that he's quitting, the stock has been dropping. The stock has been dropping. If Greg Abel was so good, the stock would not be dropping. Look at the history of the stock price after Charlie Munger passed away. Now, we know Charlie Munger had some talent. He was not, I don't think he was as good as Buffett in terms of picking good investments. I don't think Munger was as good as Buffett. But that being said, look at Berkshire Hathaway's stock price after Munger passed away. It went up. Okay? As soon as Buffett announced that he's quitting, somebody in the office can do more work than I can in 10 hours. I'm getting older faster. The stock price started to tank. So this is not a time to be putting new money to work in Berkshire Hathaway. Greg Abel has very big shoes to fill. And he has not even announced his investing philosophy. And I don't understand why you wouldn't, why Buffett would not want, because you might think, okay, maybe Buffett has put a lot of pressure on Greg Abel to not outshine him while he's still alive. I kind of doubt that. Buffett tends to be a pretty easygoing, kind of a humble person with a razor sharp intellect, but he's still a humble person. I don't think he would stop Greg Abel from writing a book. I don't think he would stop Greg Abel from giving a lot of interviews about his investing philosophy. If anything, if Greg Abel was concerned about the impression that he is leaving to people like us who are trying to decide, should we put money into Berkshire, Greg Abel would want people to know his investment philosophy, what types of businesses he likes, what types of businesses and situations he avoids, and so on, like Buffett has done over the years. We know what Buffett likes, right? When we invest in Berkshire Hathaway, we know what we're getting. Now, nobody knows. So this is a problem. Berkshire stock, despite the great news, this is why I brought up this great news. I introduced this in the middle of discussing why Buffett was quitting. Because right now, in some really good, great economic news, in this period, Berkshire stock is selling off. And it's been selling off since Buffett announced that he is quitting. And the reason is, Greg Abel we don't know anything too much about this guy. And I know there are people out there who will say, yes, we do. He's been running Berkshire for X number of years. Buffett turned over. We don't know. He has not written anything. He has not produced interviews. We just don't know what he likes. Had he made those, had he put out some material over he's been at Berkshire for 2.5 decades, right? If he had put out something, videos, if he had written a book, if he had written articles, something, but there's nothing. Compared to Buffett, he's a blank slate. So putting new money to work, Buffett is quitting, fine. Whatever his reasons are, he's decided to quit. I disagree with the reasons. I think you need to keep doing the thing you enjoy the most. Even after you lose someone close to you, you should still recognize, okay, I enjoy this activity, I'm going to keep doing it, and not quit. I think quitting is a mistake. That being said, if we knew more about Greg Abel, about his investing philosophy, we might have some courage to invest. But a lot of people are like us. They're selling the stock at a great economic time when companies are beating analyst expectations better than in the past 4 years, since 2021. So that's sort of wraps up where we are with Buffett quitting, making a mistake quitting. Abel has made a mistake by not explaining his investing philosophy. Future deploying new money into Berkshire, we just don't know. We don't have enough questions answered. So that's kind of where things are. If you have any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'm sorry if you guys disagree with me. I think some of you probably will. You'll probably say that, okay, Abel has been there for a long time. I don't know what the guy's investing philosophy is. And I don't know at his age, if you think about it, he's going to be 63 this year. Abel is. And he's quite wealthy, how motivated is he? Because Buffett was a very unusual person. He did not really, having a ton of money really did not impress him that much. What he enjoyed doing was doing a great job. And that was good for us, for people who invested in them. So if you have any questions, please post in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.